So good morning. All fine? So what we discussed last day? I think judiciary is remaining. So army, police and civil services already we have discussed. So we'll see the judicial organization under British and then we'll start with the land revenue settlements which were there at this time. So chalo, we'll start. So you just write the heading and then we'll go into discussion. Judicial organization under British. So judicial organization under British. Now understand. So when it comes to judicial organization, so right from when 1773 onwards, when a confirmed rule of British East India Company has started in Bengal, so they felt the necessity of reorganizing their judiciary. So initially what they have done, that initially they have gone with the Mughal model, that in line with the Mughal model, Warren Hastings, he introduced two type of courts then, and these two type of courts were known as Diwani Adalat and Faujdari Adalat. Then, so Diwani Adalat and Faujdari, in Diwani Adalat, okay, civil cases were taken, and in Faujdari, obviously it will be criminal cases. So these two adalat. Then apart from it, whenever okay, any such appeal is there from any of the adalat. So these appeals were made at Sadar Diwani Adalat, which was a higher court, and Sadar Diwani Adalat for civil cases and Sadar Nizamat Adalat for criminal cases. So this was the system. Moreover, in the criminal administration of India at that point of time, help of more, qazis and muftis were enlisted. Then so in medieval India, you'll be reading about the word Qazi. And Qazi, generally people confuse Qazi with the religious officers. Qazis were not religious officers. Qazis were the judicial officers. So their help was enlisted in the beginning. Then who were the judges in this court? So the judges were basically from the covenanted services of the covenanted civil services, which we mentioned in the beginning. So the people from those covenanted services were the judges. Now let's come to the next person, 1785 Cornwallis. Once again, that a contribution of the Cornwallis was a consolidating feature of the British East India Company's administration. So what he did that he reorganized the judiciary at this time, and moreover he brought many changes. He created a hierarchy of the courts or gradation of the courts in India. So now what he is going to do, just understand that once I'm explaining, there might be some sort of confusion that kahan se kahan ja raha hai, theek hai? But then when we are going to write it and the flow chart which I'll create, everything would be sorted out. Okay? So understand, first of all, that he is going to abolish Faujdari Adalat completely. There would be no Faujdari Adalat at the very first place. Then the question will arise that from where the criminal judicial procedure will start. We'll see later on. So he abolished Faujdari Adalat, and at the same point of time, the Diwani Adalat designation changed to district courts, which he named within the local language Zila Adalat. Okay? So Zila Adalat or district courts. Now Zila Adalat and district court was the first level court, but Zila Adalat and district level court, after it, the next layer of the court that he created was the four provincial courts of circuit and appeal. These four provincial courts of circuit and appeal were created at Dhaka, Murshidabad, Patna, and so Calcutta. So these four places he created these adalat, provincial courts. For the time being, we'll call it provincial court. And the criminal administration will start from the provincial court. So provincial courts were not only they were adjudicating the appeals from the district courts, which were of civil nature, but then they were also adjudicating the criminal administration. Then after, the layer which was created by Warren Hastings, it was not disturbed by him. Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat. So from 4 provincial court, if there is any issue, okay, or if there is any issue of the adjudication, so civil cases will go to Sadar Diwani Adalat and criminal cases will go to Sadar Nizamat Adalat. So this is the system he created, but then there is more to it. And what is this? That he created a hierarchy of the courts, or basically the gradation of the court. One more thing is to be noted down, that it was the Cornwallis who realized that the judicial functions of the civil servants must be separated. Then, so judicial functions of the civil servants must be separated, and now he relieved the civil servants with the judicial functions, and they were only interested with the revenue administration. Then you understand what Cornwallis is doing. अब एक बार connection link करना, ठीक है? Cornwallis is relieving the civil servants, ठीक है, or basically the administrators from the duty of the judiciary. On the other hand, William Bentinck will give them the judicial powers. You remember we mentioned at that time. So William Bentinck made them head of everything, civil administration also, judicial administration also, and so as the what else, police administration also. Then so at the time of the Cornwallis, you can see the separation of power is happening, okay, and at the time of the William Bentinck, centralization of the things is happening, okay. So mention little bit, start with that the first Governor General of Bengal, Warren Hastings, organized judiciary in line with Mughal model. Then you write, he created Diwani Adalat. For civil cases, and Faujdari Adalat for criminal cases. Diwani Adalat for civil cases and Faujdari Adalat for criminal cases. Done? Then mention appeals from Diwani Adalat were made to Sadar Diwani Adalat, and appeals from Faujdari Adalat were made to Sadar Nizamat Adalat. Now, one more thing you can mention, these two, Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat Adalat, they were in Murshidabad, the capital of Bengal. Okay? So in brackets you can write, these two adalats were created at Murshidabad. Murshidabad. Then mention after it, British enlisted help of Qazis and Muftis. In criminal administration. Moreover, the judicial officers were the members of covenanted civil services. Done. Then after it you write the next one, change paragraph, and then you write Cornwallis. Cornwallis further consolidated. Cornwallis further consolidated judicial administration of company. Judicial administration of company. Then mention number one. So not number, if you want you can write in number. So mention, start with he abolished. He abolished Faujdari Adalat. He abolished Faujdari Adalat. Number two, Diwani Adalat was now designated as Diwani Adalat was now designated as District Adalat. Diwani Adalat was now designated as District Adalat or Zila Adalat. Zila Adalat. Then mention after it Zila Adalat. Full stop. Number three. He created four provincial courts of circuit and appeal. Four provincial courts of circuit and appeal at Patna, Murshidabad, Dhaka, and Calcutta. Dhaka and Calcutta. Then mention provincial courts handled both civil and criminal cases. Handled both civil and criminal cases. Done. Then mention he also created gradation of court. He also created gradation of courts in India, which is as follows. Gradation of courts in India, which is as follows. So now I'm going to create that flowchart in which the gradation is there. Whatever I'm going to write on the top, that is the lowest level code. Okay, and then नीचे की तरफ would be the highest level code. Okay, so let's start with the lowest level code, and let me complete this chart so then you can write. So give me just a little bit of time. So the very first level of the court is called as Munsif Court. Then after Munsif Court, the next level of the court is basically Registrar's Court. So the lowest level is Munsif Court, and then second is the Registrar's Court. Then after this comes third level. Already we have mentioned, you can predict the court that he created, Zila Adalat or district courts. Zila Adalat or district courts. Then after this layer, the next one is four provincial courts. Four provincial courts. And places already you have written, so you can later denote these places. Then after four provincial courts, as we mentioned that appeals from these areas, okay, they will be made in appeals from these areas, they will go into Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat. So here at this place you can mention Sadar Diwani Adalat. And this place you mention Sadar Nizamat Adalat. So Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat. Then after this, suppose that those cases which are there which are not getting solved over here, यहाँ पे कोई मुद्दा solved नहीं हो रहा है. So then the final appeal, that one more appeal can be made from both the courts. ठीक है? To which court? Guess. Supreme Court. ठीक है? So it can be appealed in Supreme Court. So now, what is the highest level court? Supreme Court, but it is not. So highest level court is different. And this highest level court is called as Privy Council. It is also called as King in Council. So Privy Council or King in Council. So this is what is the flow chart. If you want, from the top, I can drag it down. Just 1 minute. So those who have not written, start from here. मुंसिफ कोर्ट से स्टार्ट करो, ठीक है. देन रजिस्ट्रार्स कोर्ट, जिला अदालत, 4 प्रोविंशियल कोर्ट्स, सदर दीवानी, सदर निजामत, and then appeals from Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat going to Supreme Court. But then appeals from Sadar Diwani and Sadar Nizamat can directly go to Privy Council also, okay? And can also go to that from Supreme Court also it can also go to Privy Council. Now understand what is Privy Council or King in Council. It is the highest court in which the decision is to be taken by the British monarch. Okay? So just like in our parliamentary system, what we have seen, that the highest level of the appeal is the president. Even after the judgment of the Supreme Court, if capital punishment is given, so after the judgment of the Supreme Court, the appeal can be made to President of India, and then he can decide on many such things, which is commutation of the death penalty, reprieve. Okay? I hope you know these words. Commutation of the death penalty into a lesser punishment. कि डेथ पेनल्टी मिला है तो हो सकता है लाइफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट हो जाए, रिप्राइव, ठीक है, और completely giving the forgiveness to the person. So it is up to the not only president but also to whom? Governor. Okay? So governor also enjoys, in due course of the time in your polity classes you'll be reading that both have these judicial powers. Okay? So now this is what is the gradation of the court. Now it is easy to understand that what he created in India. ठीक है, लिखने में थोड़ा सा confusion हो सकता है, but then not with the flow chart. So it was the highest level of court. But now the question is that why not Supreme Court is the highest level of the court? Because you remember, एक चीज हमने beginning में लिखा था, I don't know we have written or not, but the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court was limited to Bihar, Bengal and Odisha. And by 1790s and then by 1700, 1800s, what has happened, that the further expansion of the British territory in India has happened. So they have territories in Madras and Bombay also, but then the law of the Supreme Court was not applicable to Bombay and Madras then. So in that case, they will directly be appealing to the Privy Council. They will not appeal in the Supreme Court. And एक बात हमेशा याद रखना, that the Supreme Court created in 1774 was never the precursor of the today's Supreme Court. Then today's Supreme Court traces its origin from the Federal Court of India 1935 Act. So we'll be writing when we are going to write Government of India Act 1935. So this has no relation, only relation is both have the same name, Supreme Court and Supreme Court. But इससे कोई वास्ता नहीं है, ठीक है? So this is the change which was introduced by the Cornwallis. But the next change which is to be introduced by William Bentinck. Then, so William Bentinck, what he did, that he abolished this court. Which court? So let me come to this. 4 provincial courts. So he abolished these 4 provincial courts, and at this place he created judicial commissionaries. Okay? So he created judicial commissionaries after the district court. Judicial commissionaries, and these judicial commissionaries, it is just like, have you heard about the commissionerate system? नहीं पढ़ा है या नहीं सुना है. In fact, you are going into the services, you must acquaint yourself with the commissionerate system. So for example, that if Delhi NCR की बात करें, ठीक है, so in Delhi NCR particularly these areas which are there in the NCR region, Noida, ठीक है, Ghaziabad. So in Noida there are many areas. So this is commissionary, ठीक है, it is not a district, it is a commissionary. Similarly, we can say that Gurgaon is also a commissionary. So ये जो terms and terminologies हैं, एक बार अपने आप को थोड़ा सा इससे वाकिफ करना. So these are commissionaries, and moreover here the commissioners are appointed. So much bigger area is called as commissionary. Similarly, when the judicial commissionaries are created at this time, तो क्या होगा, 3-4 डिस्ट्रिक्ट एक में कंबाइन कर दिया, and that is commissionary. In today's time we also call something as zone, ठीक है, that this zone, अगर जो तुम देखोगे किसी भी स्टेट में, so in any state there are the zones, and in those zones 4-5 districts are there. Then so similarly 4-5 districts will lead to the commissionary, and who were the in charge of the commissionary, judicial commissionary? Civil servants. Once again district collectors are going to become the judicial officers. So you write, mention William Bentinck, paragraph change करके लिखना. William Bentinck abolished 4 provincial courts. William Bentinck abolished 4 provincial courts. 4 provincial courts, and at their place he created judicial commissionaries. At their place he created judicial commissionaries. Full stop. Once again, civil servants and district collectors or district collectors, civil servants or district collectors were given, civil servants or district collectors were given the charge of judicial commissionary, were given the charge of judicial commissionaries. Then judicial commissionaries. So this is what has happened till 1857. One last wording I'll tell you, that we'll write one last thing. In later on, since we have not gone into that act, so when we'll be writing, we're going into that act, so I'll further elaborate, but understand. After the revolt of 1857, first act was Government of India Act 1858. And in 1858, the provisions were not very elaborate. They felt that initially let's start with some sort of provisions, and then it was elaborated in Councils Act of the 1861. So there was something which was mentioned in the Councils Act, that they have made a case that those all irrelevant courts which are there, they must be abolished, and at their place there must be creation of the high courts. So highest level of the court in India in 1865 was high courts, and these 3 high courts were created at which places? Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. Now one question can be asked, that what happened to the Supreme Court at Calcutta? So Supreme Court at Calcutta got merged with the High Court at Calcutta in 1865 itself. So एक last line लिख लो, okay, that will be better. So mention that after the revolt of 1857, further changes were introduced. Further changes were introduced in the judicial system of India. In 1865, 3 high courts at Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta was created. Three high courts at Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta was created. And Calcutta was created. Supreme Court at Calcutta, Supreme Court at Calcutta got merged with got merged with High Court at Calcutta. Then you write two new principles. Two new principles were introduced in the judicial system of India. Two new principles were introduced in the judicial system of India. Now I'll ask it to you. What were these two new principles? Guess. Two new principles were introduced in the judicial system of India. So you must have started, I think, in the beginning of your polity classes itself. No idea? Guess karo? No guess? You guys are very bad at guessing also. नहीं bad क्या हो तुम लोग हो ही नहीं guessing में करते ही नहीं हो तो guess कर तो bad कहाँ से होगे? So two new principles and I think आगे भी पढ़ोगे. So rule of law, procedure established by law. ठीक है? So mention number one, rule of law and procedure established by law. Rule of law and procedure established by law. So this is what is about the system which was there in the immediate future till this point of time. So now we are done with some of the important aspects of the administrative aspects of the company. Okay? Then one of the most important feature or most important discussion is the land revenue systems. Okay? So land revenue systems, and moreover, these land revenue system, I feel, I have this hunch that somehow I am feeling that time has come that there would be a question from the land revenue system in both the stages of exam. Okay? So three land revenue system, permanent was the first, Rayatwadi second, and Mehalwari third. So we'll start with it. But then now understand that for any regime, okay, to continue, they need to have the good economic base, and then the collection of the taxes are very important. So there are n number of the collection of the taxes would be there. Collection of the or taxes could be in the form of the sales tax. Sales tax was one of the oldest tax in the world, that on the sale of the commodity these taxes were there, and taxes, customs duty, these were also there, very old. So there are one source of the taxes, but the most important source of the tax to the British government right from the beginning was land tax. Okay? And these land tax are on the basis of the agriculture. So these settlements that we are going to discuss, it is the land settlement. Okay? So land settlement. Now, so permanent would be the first one. Then Rayatwadi is the second, and Mehalwari is the third. So in a detailed manner, we are going to see. Let's understand that how we are going to proceed in this topic. So first of all, introduction, in which we'll talk about the important officers, the areas, and the percentage of areas. And then after, we go into the provisions of the particular settlement. After the provisions, the reasons for its implementation. After the reasons for its implementation, we'll talk about the impact of the particular settlement, so that no question, either prelims or mains, must be unsolved by you. Then, so let's go ahead with this. Write a major title: Land Revenue Settlements under British East India Company. और ब्रिटिश लिखना सिर्फ, ठीक है? बिकॉज अच्छा एक और चीज ध्यान रखना, that these land revenue settlements that we are going to mention, they continued even after 1857. ठीक है? Some reforms were done, but they continued. So same kind of system would be there till the end of the British rule in India. Then, so mention land revenue settlements under British. And we'll start with number one, permanent settlement. permanent settlement, and it is also called as Zamindari Bandobast. Zamindari Bandobast. So permanent settlement or Zamindari Bandobast. So let's look at the name itself, that why it is called as the permanent settlement. Okay? And moreover, see, most of the time when we start with the initial level of NCRT, so there are some information which are given on a very basic level, just to make you acquainted with the system which is there, and some sort of understanding must develop. But then when we are in an exam like civil services, which is mother of all the exams, and obviously it demands very hard work from your side and perseverance. So then in this case, we need to go little deeper. Just like I think you must have seen that in your class 6th, 7th, 8th, when you started your science study, so optics you read everywhere. Class 6 में भी पढ़ते हो, 8th में, 7th में, 9th में, 10th में, but at every level the details of the optics is increasing. Similarly, NCRT information I don't think is enough for it. Okay? So now we'll add some more parts from 3-4 books. First of all, why it was called as permanent settlement? So it was called as permanent settlement because the revenue rates were permanently fixed. We'll see that how it was fixed. So revenue rates were permanently fixed. That's why it was called as permanent settlement, or it was a fixed income settlement. That's why permanent. Then why it is called as Zamindari Bandobast? So Zamindari Bandobast because the settlement was between British authority and the Zamindar. It was not between British authority and the peasant, but it was between British authority and Zamindar. So as such, it came to be known as the Zamindari Bandobast. Now, who introduced? So, first of all, it was introduced by once again Cornwallis. Then, and in which year? The year in which he was departing from India was the year of the major changes. Cornwallis Code, then police reform, then judicial reform, then civil services reform, and then also the land revenue settlement. So Cornwallis started it in 1793. Initially, it was introduced in the area of the Bengal and Bihar only, but later on it was extended to Odisha, and it was further extended to the northern districts of the Madras and area of Varanasi. So eastern UP, you can say, that was under the realm of this particular bandobast. Then overall, when we talk about that how much area it constituted, so it constituted 19% area of the British India. So 19% area, it is not 190, 19% area of the British India. And when we saw British India, so British India will include Pakistan, Bangladesh, ठीक है, these all areas. So mention introduction पहले लिखो, ठीक है. It derives its name. It derives its name from the fixed income model or permanent income model between not between negotiated between negotiated between British and zamindars, negotiated between British and zamindar, British and zamindars. Then mention after it, since the negotiation was with zamindar, it also came to be known as zamindari bandobast. It also came to be known as zamindari bandobast. Then mention, it also came to be known as zamindari bandobast. Full stop. It was introduced by Cornwallis. It was introduced by Cornwallis in 1793. In 1793, in the area of Bengal and Bihar. but later it was further extended to but later it was further extended to Odisha, Odisha, northern districts of Madras, northern districts of Madras, and area of Varanasi. Area of Varanasi. Then mention it covered it covered approximately it covered approximately 19% 19% area of British India. It covered approximately 19% area of British India. Then, so now let's listen about the provisions of this settlement. Okay, so what are the provisions of the settlement? So first of all, that when it comes to the permanent amount and negotiation with the zamindar, so what was the system? Why it is called as permanent? एक बार ध्यान से समझना. That very first thing, that British, they have calculated the income or the revenue from the or land revenue from the Bengal, which was there in the 1789 and 1790. So the income was calculated, and they have also seen the income in last 10 years. But then major focus was 1789 to 1790. Now, whatever be the amount in that 1789, the collection of revenue, now it was chosen as a kind of example, and then it was revised in the upward direction. ठीक है, मीनिंग लेट सपोज अगर जो 100 रुपए है तो रिवाइज करके उसको कर दिया गया 120 रुपए. ठीक है, so it was revised in the upward direction, and then that upward amount was chosen then, and this was the fixed amount that British were about to get, or they were supposed to get every year from the Bengal. So I'll give you exact number. It was somewhere around 26.8 million rupees. Then, and in other words, so if we go with the pound, so it was 3 million pound rupees. So 3 million pound rupees. So this is what is decided, that from the entire Bengal, year on year basis, British must get this much amount, 3 million pound rupees. Okay? So 3 million pound rupees, that was there. That this must be the collection. Then the NCRTs have mentioned, which may lead to confusion. Okay? NCRTs and lower level NCRTs, what they have mentioned, that the system of the revenue collection was 10/11 for the zamindar, sorry, 10/11 for the British and 1/11 for the zamindar. Now, one might be confused कि ये fix कैसे हुआ फिर, ठीक है? So basically, if this is the amount which is fixed, ठीक है, 10/11 and 3 million pounds. So from this collected amount, once it is given to the British will keep 10/11 out of this amount. They are keeping 10/11 and they are giving back 1/11 to zamindar because he has collected the revenue. Okay? This is agreement. This is agreement. So amount was fixed. Now there must be question in your mind. Ki, so there is not just one zamindar. Ek zamindar to hai nahi. There are many zamindars. So how it could be ensured that they all are combinedly collecting this one? So 1689 से 1690 के बीच में, ठीक है, not only the total amount was calculated, but it was also assessed that how much income or how much tax zamindars have collected from their areas. So basically ये जो amount है, इसका particular division was made to each and every zamindar. ठीक है, so for example, suppose that this much money I have written, suppose 100 rupees, ठीक है, 100 we have written. So now in this 100, all the zamindars, they have their own share, that this much they must be submitting to the British authority. So suppose one zamindar is supposed to submit 10 rupees, another 15 rupees, another 12 rupees, and it depends on how much area they are covering. Okay? So accordingly, a proportion was fixed to them that how much they will be collecting. Now, I just want to ask that, are you able to understand? समझ रहे हो ना? So see that this is important because बहुत बार, not बहुत बार, many a times when we are going through the books, so then we don't understand that what they are trying to say. And in some of the books, the details are not mentioned. So classes are a good way to understand these things. Or basically the questions, the things that you don't understand in the books, you can ask over here. Okay? So this is the system. This is the system which was devised at this point of time. Then now next thing, that what about the land ownership right? Okay. So since the revenue rates were negotiated with the zamindar, so land ownership right was given to the zamindar. Then, so zamindar was given land ownership right. Moreover, he has all these rights. And what is these rights I'm going to mention? The land was hereditary. It can be transferred to his son. Then land was transferable. He can transfer it to somebody else. Land he can mortgage, he can sell. Okay? So he can mortgage, he can sell. So mortgaging and selling. Mortgage, you understand? गिरवी रखना, ठीक है? So गिरवी रख सकते हैं या sell कर सकते हैं. These all rights were there. But then this is always with terms and condition apply. What is this terms and condition apply? Is that, but the ultimate ownership was in the hand of the British authority. So ultimate ownership of the land was in the hand of the British authority. And here comes one of the clause of the permanent settlement. And this clause is known as sunset clause. Then, so understand, as per the sunset clause, Zamindar was the owner of the land till the time he has paid the revenue. He is the owner of the land till he is paying the revenue on time. If the Zamindar defaults on the payment means that if he is not paying the revenue on time, so then he will be no more owner of the land. The land ownership right would be snatched from him. Okay? So the land ownership right would be snatched from him, and then this particular land, it will be auctioned. Okay? It will be auctioned, and then it will be bidded to someone else. It would be bidded to someone else. And then this someone else will become the new owner of the land. So अगर time से payment नहीं किया, ठीक है? So then land ownership right is not there with the zamindar. And auctioning, you know, ठीक है? So auctioning and हाँ नीलामी और bidding मतलब बोली लगा के नीलामी. So बोली लगा के नीलामी कैसे होता है? For example, एक land है, ठीक है? And that is to be given to somebody else. So then people will be invited. And जिसने highest bid लगाया, somebody saying that this zamindari land, give me in 10 lakh rupees. Somebody said, give me in 20 lakh rupees. So 20 is the highest bidding. British got one more income bidding ke through, and then they got the zamindari right. So this was one of the clause in this one, and its का impact बाद में हम लोग बात करेंगे. When we are going to talk about the impact, so in impact we'll be writing. So this is one part. Then another thing. So first two provisions. The third provision is basically, what if there is a natural calamity? ठीक है? कुछ हो गया, flood आ गया, drought हो गया, famine हो गया. What is there if there is a natural calamity? So is there any relief to the peasants? No, there was no relief to peasant. So this particular settlement was silent on the relief to the peasant in the case of the crop failure due to any such calamity. So it was silent means that there was no such thing. Then understand how zamindar, okay? So how zamindar is collecting the revenue from the peasant. So initially it was decided that he must take the customary payment, or basically the nominal payment, which can adjust to this amount. Okay? Adjust to this amount. So basically, the revenue collection from the peasant was on the discretion of the zamindar. Okay? Whatever amount he wants to collect, he collected. Then, so discretion of the zamindar. Suppose that out of the 3 million rupees, 3 million pound, as there is a one zamindar who needed to collect 3 million का मतलब कितना हुआ? 30 lakh. ठीक है? So 30 lakh pound rupees. So suppose he was supposed to collect 1 lakh pound. Then 1 lakh pound to contribute to the British. But then he can collect 1.5, he can collect 1.8 also. It is up to him. The only thing which was there in the act that British were concerned with 1 lakh pound. वो collect कितना कर रहे हैं, that was also silent. समझ रहे हो इस बात को? Meaning that zamindar can collect anything. We'll see that why this provision was there. Why zamindar can collect anything. तो इसका एक reason है. We'll see in the reasons for implementation. So that was one part. Then another thing, ठीक है? That what about is there any revision of the rates? No, because पहले ही mention है that it is permanently fixed for time immemorial. So then there would be no revision in the tax rates at any point of time. So एक बार धीरे धीरे लिखो and then we'll further go into the reasons for its implementation. So provisions, title, you write provisions, and in provisions you write British authority permanently fixed the amount that they would be receiving year on year basis. Full stop. For the fixed amount, a revenue of year 1789-90, revenue of year 1789-90 was chosen. 1789-90 was chosen, and an upward revision was made to the amount. Collected in this year. Full stop. Then you write this amount was 26.8 million rupees. 26.8 million rupees or 3 million pound. Now can you figure out that which currency is strong at this point of time? Pound is strong. So pound was always strong. देखो बहुत सारी जगह पे ना people that in WhatsApp and Instagram University देख रहे हैं कि रुपया बहुत strong था पहले, ठीक है? Don't go by those things, ठीक है? The falsifications. Pound was strong from the beginning. And one of the reasons that pound was strong from the beginning is basically the Industrial Revolution. ठीक है? Then further you write. After this, एक बार दिखाओ क्या लिखा है? So this amount was 26.8 million rupees or 3 million, not billion. Million. 3 million pound. ठीक है? Then you write. This was the fixed amount from which 10 by 11 was to be kept by British authority, and 1 by 11 was handed over to zamindars. Then the next point, पहले बाद में मैंने discussion किया था, but in sequence it will be better to write at the second place. So second place you write, zamindars were supposed to collect. This is second point. ठीक है? Were supposed to collect revenue from the peasants. British authority expected that them नहीं लिखना, expected that zamindars will collect revenue from peasant on customary rate. rate, but it was on the discretion, but it was on the discretion of zamindar. It was the discretion of zamindar that how much he will be collecting from peasant. How much he will be collecting from peasant. Collecting from peasant. Then, so British, देखो, if we talk about the intention of the Cornwallis in this one, ध्यान से समझना, his intention was not bad actually. That though the law has its own loopholes, ठीक है, loopholes, but then he expected that this was expected by Cornwallis that zamindars will be collecting customary rate, meaning that nominal rate, जिससे कि ये amount fulfill हो जाए, and moreover some surplus must remain with the zamindar. But zamindars were more interested in increasing this surplus. ठीक है? So that is one part which we'll write in the impact. Then next one you write. Land ownership right. Land ownership right was given to zamindar. Land ownership right was given to zamindar. It was hereditary and transferable. It was hereditary and transferable. Moreover, zamindars had the right to sell and mortgage their landed estate. To sell and mortgage their landed estate. Sell and mortgage their landed estate. Then next you write, next point. The ultimate ownership of the land, lay in the hands of British authority. Lay in the hands of British authority. Then mention. Next point, उसमें पहले subheading you can mention in the next point, sunset clause. Sunset clause. As per this clause, if zamindars, defaulted on the payment, and for your further understanding you can write the meaning of the defaulted in brackets, right? So brackets में लिखो defaulted on the payment, did not paid revenue on time. Brackets में लिखो did not paid revenue on time. Bracket closed. Did not paid revenue on time. Bracket closed. So if zamindar defaulted on the payment, it led to snatching of his land ownership right. It led to snatching of his land ownership right. Then this land was auctioned. And bidded to highest bidder. Then next point you write, there was no provision of relief to peasant. There was no provision of relief to peasant in case of crop failure, in case of crop failure, crop failure due to any natural calamity, due to any natural calamity, any natural calamity. So now understand that what are the reasons for its implementation. So first we'll talk about reasons and then we'll talk about impact of this settlement later on. Okay? So write a title, reasons for its implementation. Reasons for its implementation. So now understand what were the reasons of its implementation. I'll tell you a little bit of history in this. What is this? एक बार वापस चलते हैं 1765, ठीक है? In 1765, since it is all starting with the Bengal, then so British got the divine rights of the Bihar, Bengal and Odisha. And what is this? Revenue collection right. But this revenue collection was severely impacted. Why it was impacted? The great famine of the 1770 in Bengal, which nearly wiped off 1/3 population of the Bengal. Now, when the governor generals of the Bengal they are there, so they are assessing the situation that why this happened. Okay, that their revenue has declined, but what was the main reason of this decline of the revenue and why this famine has happened? Okay, so famine matlab bhukmari, okay, and it is always related to the agriculture. Then so one of the reasons that they were able to find was that the agricultural fertility or the land fertility of the Bengal has gone down. Why it has gone down? Because there was so much of loot of the money from 1775 and till 1770 that British thought that this is the time that jitna एक हिंदी में word है लूट का माल छूट में, ठीक है? This is what was applicable over here. And moreover, the peasantry of the Bengal, they were not left with anything to invest on the fertility of the land. So now it was realized that fertility of the land was not in a good shape then, and moreover, the income of the British have declined. On one hand, you see when the income of British have declined from 1770, so they are fighting on many areas. Which are areas? पहले तो मैसूर से फाइट कर लिया 1767 to 69 फर्स्ट वॉर. देन मराठा से फाइट कर रहे हैं 1775 to 1782. Then they are fighting with Mysore once again. Then so Maratha, Mysore, this is going on, and they needed a fixed source of income. Okay, so fixed source of income, and moreover, this fixed source of income basically after 1773, the governor of Bengal, Governor General of Bengal was responsible for all the territory. So then he will have to provide them funds also. So now they needed a fixed source of income. ठीक है? So that no matter चाहे famine आए चाहे कुछ भी आए लोग अपनी किडनी बेच के पैसा दें. This is a reality. So they wanted fixed source of income. Then that's how. So they fixed the income. ठीक है? Then the second thing that Cornwallis thought process was like that he wanted that why he has gone ahead with these all kind of system whereby he has given land ownership right to the zamindar and revenue collection right to the zamindar. So there are two considerations over here. The very first consideration, understand that Cornwallis wanted to save money, okay, or in administrative expense or basically the expense related to the revenue collection. So if the British are not collecting the revenue, so they are not spending much on the collection of the revenue. So he wanted to save the administrative cost in collection of the revenue, and that's why it was given to the zamindar. That is number one. And moreover, he also wanted that when they are not involved in the issue or in the factor in the collection of the revenue, so then they can focus on other things. What are the other things? Expansion of the British. Okay, fight with the other areas. So they just wanted that they must focus in one aspect and revenue must be collected by the zamindars. Moreover, another thing that they wanted to create a very loyal class in the Indian society. Okay? So it was basically considered as a paradigm shift in the Indian society. Why so? Because British wanted to create, or Cornwallis at this time, he wanted to create a loyal class in the Indian society, which will be not only friendly, but then they will be supporter of the British Raj in India in the years to come. Okay? And this is done through, I will tell you in the impact how. Okay? We will connect each and every dot that we are discussing, 2 and 4th. Then the next one, he was also of the view that if zamindars, okay, if we look at the provision, so if zamindars are given the right to collection of revenue, and if little bit is on their discretion, that land ownership right is given to them and the collection of the revenue is on their discretion. So if they get some surplus amount or more amount, so they will invest on the fertility of the land. Okay? So he had this vision that कि जब तक की fertility of land है तभी तक we will be getting the revenue. This is very real. Okay? That if the fertility of land is compromised, so obviously क्या करोगे? Okay? You can't collect the revenue from the peasant. So he was of the view that if something is left with the zamindars and land ownership right is with them, so whatever surplus that they are getting, they will invest on the fertility of the land, and that's how revenue collection like this will continue. So this was his expectation. ठीक है? But then expectation क्या था, result क्या आया, वो पूरा different था. So just mention, you're right. You start with the number one. British authority wanted to save the administrative cost in the collection of revenue, to save the administrative cost in the collection of revenue. That's why revenue collection rights were given to zamindars. Revenue collection rights were given to zamindars. Then mention revenue collection rights were given to zamindars. In meantime, British authority wanted to focus on the other aspects of British expansion in India. Focus on other aspects of British expansion in India. Then mention. Number 2, you write, due to the great famine of Bengal, revenue collection of company reduced drastically. Revenue collection of company reduced drastically. British were able to trace the reason behind it. That was decreasing fertility of Bengal land. And Bengal land. Full stop. As such, land ownership right was given to zamindars so that with the surplus collection they can invest on the fertility of land. Then you write, third point, To further expand in India, to further expand in India and consolidate British rule and consolidate British rule, company wanted fixed income. Company wanted fixed income without any interruption. Company wanted fixed income without any interruption. Without any interruption. Next one. British wanted British wanted to effect a paradigm shift in Indian society. British wanted to effect a paradigm shift in Indian society. They wanted to create a new class of landlord in India, a new class of landlord in India who is not only friendly, who is not only friendly, but also but also very loyal, but also very loyal to the British Raj. Very loyal to the British Raj. Then, so these are the reasons of the implementation of this particular settlement. Okay, let's look at the impact of permanent settlement. So, impact of permanent settlement. So, very first thing, okay, we'll start with the income of the British. Okay, what is their expectation and income of the British? Then, so the expectation एक बार फिर से ठीक है कि what was the expectation कि they will be getting the fixed income. ठीक है, at the same point of time they will be getting a new class of zamindar who is loyal to them. Then they were also interested that the fertility of the land must be intact. That's why they have given the ownership right to the zamindar. Now on these parameters what has happened? Very first thing, that though the fixed income was there, okay, though the fixed income was there, British were getting this fixed income and there were no major hiccups in the collection of the fixed income. But then after some point of time, British started to repent. Then authorities started to repent that there must have been the provision of the revision in the revenue rates, because they forgot while creating these provisions that they were not taking into the consideration that if the improved intervention, what if in some year there is a good rainfall, good monsoon, increased productivity in the Bengal, and in this increased productivity, more benefit will go to the zamindar then, but British will get the same amount. So they cannot do anything in this regard because it was inherent in the law that they cannot increase a single pie even if there is a good production in the Bengal. Then, so this is what they felt. At the same point of time, okay, they were expecting, okay, they were expecting that zamindars would be investing, okay, on the fertility of the land, but actually in reality, zamindars did not invested on the fertility of the land. Then, and since they were not investing on the fertility of the land, they are the landowners. So who will invest? And when they are not investing, so fertility of the land was one of the biggest tragedy in the Bengal. And in fact, the peasantry, they are just a tenant, ठीक है, they are just a labor. जब land ownership right नहीं है तो they are just a labor. So why they will invest on the fertility of land? In fact, their existence became hand to mouth. Hand to mouth, you understand? खाने भर का हो पाना, वो in fact ये भी सही नहीं है. Their existence became worse than hand to mouth, meaning that they were not even able to get enough amount to that to satisfy their hunger also. So now this was a precarious situation. So British, whatever they intended, they were not getting exactly. Now let's talk about the zamindar. The interesting aspect is the zamindar itself. First premise is the sunset clause. And sunset clause, so what was this sunset clause? Once again, एक बार दोबारा सुनो, that if a zamindar is defaulting on the payment, so it led to the snatching of land ownership right. Land was auctioned and it was bidded to the highest bidder. Then in between, ठीक है, that since implementation of this and till the last day of the settlement, it is noted down that a good number of zamindars, ठीक है, they sold their landed estate, ठीक है, they sold their landed estate, or basically there was shifting of the land ownership right. Why so? Because of the sunset clause, many of them, they were not able to pay, so their land was snatched, and many of them who knew it perfectly कि पे नहीं कर पाएंगे, so before paying only they have sold the land, ठीक है. So near about 41% of the zamindari states were sold, ठीक है. So 41% of the zamindari states were sold or they were snatched. So it means that 41% new zamindars will come to power, ठीक है. So new zamindars would be there. And who are these new zamindars? The one who is loyal to the British rule, friendly to the British rule. This is what we are saying. Are you able to connect? Yes or no? थोड़ा sound बोलो, ठीक है. See that we are actually, this has led to the breakage of, फिर से एक बार दोबारा सुना देखो. See that there are the things, I'm going in little slow in the explanation in this particular topic because intricate things are there. You need to understand and you need to connect, and this is what I'm emphasizing from the very beginning. So अगर जो connect कर पाओगे तो कोई रोकेगा नहीं तुम्हें, ठीक है. Out of 10 marks you can get 6.57 also, but if you're able to connect. So फिर से दोबारा से सुन लो that what is there, that British, what we wrote in the reasons में हमने लिखा that British wanted to effect a paradigm in the Indian society. They wanted to create a new class of landlord who is not only loyal to the British rule and also friendly to the British rule. ठीक है. So who is this new class of zamindar? क्योंकि traditionally तो पुराना class of zamindar है. In Bengal you have seen that zamindari as an institution was very strong and very powerful zamindars were there at that point of time. So they are the traditional zamindars. Then, okay, they have their own power. But now British want to replace them. Traditional zamindar को हलाओ और नया बनाओ. And नया अगर जो मैं बनाऊंगा तो they will be my, that they will be friendly to me, they will be loyal to me. This is what they are trying. So since 41% of the zamindari states were sold, and then zamindari states were sold, and then after what has happened, that new zamindars have come. So they are the one who have become the loyal to the British rule and the British authority. In fact, this is the class which we call collaborator class with the British, because they collaborated with the British till the India's independence, and they were the one of the vehicle of the British rule in India. Okay? Because all the time they have sided with the British, they have favored the British. Then, so now understand the next thing. पहले इतना लिख लो because फिर उसके बाद confusion create हो जाता है. So first you write impact में लिखो that. So British लिखो पहले, a title you write a British. One by one we are talking about all the stakeholders. And so mention लिखो. So number one British पे लिखो. It served the targeted objective of the British. It served the targeted objective of the British to collect, not collect, targeted objective of the British to receive fixed amount of revenue, to receive fixed amount of revenue. Then mention revenue for a longer period of time, amount of revenue for a longer period of time. with which they funded their expansion activities in India, with which they funded their expansion activities in India. Just wait 1 minute. So, and be cautious in what you are writing at this point of time, ठीक है? If the response screen is open to you, तो यहाँ पे टीचर मत बनो, ठीक है? And don't teach us how to teach, ठीक है? So, if you are not comfortable, go out. Then, and at the same point of time, don't talk on the behalf of the others. That we, use you, not we. And this disclaimer I'm giving in the beginning, that if you don't behave with the decorum and the etiquette, it's for online, not for you guys. Then, so you will be completely debarred from the response screen. And if the decorum is not right, so then you will be not given the access to the classes. So behave in a proper manner. And you are not a child who has just come out of the birth, that just after the birth. I hope that this maturity must be there, that if you have taken a considered decision that what is to be, that you are going to appear in this exam, so then behave maturely, and then don't teach us how to teach. Then if it is not the case, so go out, don't see the classes. So how many of you are not able to connect the topic? Please let me know. Are you not able to connect the topic? Are you able to connect the topic, that what you have studied? So give a resound, yes or no. There are 180 people in the class who are able to connect the topic. So if you're not able to understand, do your homework. Then, chalo. So let's go back to this part. And this is not a joke. It's a very serious class and it's a very serious preparation. So be serious in the class. I would not entertain any bombardment of the things on the response screen. See, majority of the time, this is what we have seen, that this online system and response screen, because of people are faceless, so they acquire nuisance kind of thing. कुछ भी लिखते हैं. So अपना कुछ भी अपने पास रखो, ठीक है? मुझसे पढ़ने आए हो तो पढ़ो, ठीक है? उसके आगे कुछ अगर जो कुछ नहीं समझ में आता है, so place a request. We are here to make you understand that what you have not understood. But you can't teach me कि ये ब्रिटिश एनालिसिस में पढ़ा देते, इधर पढ़ा देते, उधर पढ़ा देते. तो जो पढ़ा रहा है उससे जाके पढ़ लेना, ठीक है? So let's get back to this class. So today response screen has been activated. Congratulations to all of you, ठीक है? अब उस पे bombardment start करो. उस पे जो भी हिंदी में कुछ बोलना था मेरे को, लेकिन नहीं बोलूंगा, छोड़ो. So now, and I believe that even 5 people in the class have understood my purpose is served. Okay? Because this exam is all about that you need to strut your stuff. You need to bring your understanding. 5 लोग भी समझ आ गए ना, तो मुझे पता है कि that I have taught whatever I have intended to do, people have understood and they will use it in the exam beautifully. So it's all about that how well is your grasping power. And यहाँ पे spoon feeding नहीं चल रहा है. In fact, this class is much more elaborate. If I will have to say something to you guys that if अगर तुम्हारी जगह पे मैं होता, मुझे एग्जाम देना होता, तो मैं शायद बहुत किताबों के चक्कर में नहीं पड़ता. I would go with my own notes and then definitely I'll get a very good marks from in the exam and the prelims also. So don't ponder over it too much, and then thoda sa leap of faith, have a leap of faith, go ahead with the trust. If you right from the beginning, if you don't have this kind of trust, so then आगे जिंदगी में कभी कुछ नहीं कर पाओगे, ठीक है? It's not just one person, but it's a kind of a generic statement. So लिखो आगे. So mention, what is the next thing? So what you have written, it served the targeted objective of the British to receive fixed amount of revenue for a longer period of time, which they funded, with which they funded their expansion activities in India. Then second, you write, British expected zamindars to invest the surplus collection in the fertility of land, to invest the surplus collection in fertility of land, but the results were otherwise. Full stop, then mention. The results were otherwise. In fact, fertility of the agricultural land of Bengal was one of the biggest casualty. Then biggest casualty. Then mention next one. Okay, after this, number 2, zamindar likhna. So zamindar, and in zamindar part you write very first thing, due to sunset clause, not majority, a good number of zamindars, due to sunset clause, a good number of zamindars lost their land ownership right, which led to emergence of a new class of zamindar, then mention new class of zamindar. Moreover, it is to be noted that a great number of zamindars, if you want you can write 41%, okay? Great number of zamindars either sold their landed estate or mortgaged it, ठीक है? So चाहो तो this percentage also you can write 41% of the traditional zamindars in the bracket, ठीक है? So 41% of the traditional zamindars were the one who have sold this particular thing. Now the interesting part after it is that I'm going to write some keywords, 2 keywords over here, and we'll explain in detail that what is the meaning of these 2 keywords. So these 2 keywords are sub-feudalization, and another is the phenomenon of the absentee landlord. So this is what is going to emerge at this point of time. So sub-feudalization or the phenomenon of the absentee landlord. Now, anyone who will try to explain that what is sub-feudalization, please? Yep. Intermediaries, yes. So what's he saying, that it is the emergence of the large number of intermediaries, then is sub-feudalization. Then let me explain. So you are right. मुझे इससे ज़्यादा नहीं चाहिए था. So what is sub-feudalization? Feudalization we all understand, and sub मतलब उसके अंदर. So just like that we see in the society that we have subcasteization, ठीक है? सब जगह पे अगर जो sub लगा दो, तो it means that layer and a new layer under a layer. Then so for example, that when we talk about the caste system in India, so there are many layers in the caste system in India. So for example, initial classification is the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Then within each of these systems, ठीक है, there are many caste, and within the caste there are many subdivision. So for example, that if we look at the caste, let's take an example of the Brahmin society itself. Then in the Brahmin society there are n number of the titles, then Mishra, Tiwari, Tripathi, Dubey, Chaube. But then suppose that there are two Tiwaris in this class, ठीक है, if I happen to ask that what is their gotra, so there is one more layer. Their gotras might be different. Somebody is from Shandil, somebody is from Bharadwaj, somebody is from Gautam. So ये जरूरी नहीं है कि if your caste is same, so your gotra would be same. ठीक है? In fact, this is the concept you will be learning in the ancient history. So there are many layers. Then meaning that layer within layer. Similarly, here, what is sub-feudalization? That creation of the large number of intermediaries. अब एक बहुत सारे सवाल हैं जो I would ask to you. So the question is that let's start this sub-feudalization. From where zamindar is collecting the revenue? Rural or urban? Rural area, ठीक है? Because agriculture कहाँ हो रहा है? Rural area में, ठीक है? So zamindar is supposed to collect the revenue from the rural area. Then, and moreover, when he's collecting the revenue, so he's collecting the revenue. So after some point of time, he has got hell lot of money. Now he does not wants to go to collect revenue. What he has done, that zamindar has given this responsibility to some of their relatives, ठीक है? That on my behalf he has given the authority, you collect the revenue. Then so now one intermediary, he will be intermediary, ठीक है? That relative would be intermediary, he is collecting revenue on the behalf of the zamindar. Then suppose if he also feels that कि मैं किसी और को भी दे सकता हूँ, ठीक है? So he can also further give it to someone other. So this is what we are calling sub-feudalization. Ki responsibility is there with me that I am collecting the revenue, but then I am passing it to somebody else. Have you seen the old matches with that old cricket matches when India is playing? Okay? When those people were Azharuddin, Jadeja, Tendulkar, that era. I'm not blaming Tendulkar, but you see, जब भी कभी कोई शॉट लगता था, ठीक है, तो एक कॉमन, देयर वाज अ कॉमन वर्ड पीपल वर यूजिंग, झंडा दिखाना, मीनिंग every fielder in India was saying you go, he says you go. Have you seen that? Now it is not the case that all the fielders they are trying to catch it. Then so same situation is over here, that I am the one who is responsible for collecting the revenue, but I am giving to somebody else and then he is giving to somebody else. This is what is sub-feudalization, meaning emergence of the large number of intermediaries. Moreover, this term absentee landlord is connected with it. Okay? So what is this absentee landlord? Now understand. So it is connected with it. How come? Okay? I am the one, consider zamindar, who is responsible for collecting the revenue. And moreover, I am not collecting revenue. What I do? So suppose I am zamindar who is living in the rural areas, who is collecting the revenue, but my income has increased. So then, as we know that this is a process in the society, that with increasing income, lifestyle changes. Then, so with increasing income, lifestyle changes, and moreover, family members would not be comfortable in living in the rural areas. So then, one fine day, the zamindar's family members, they are saying that why we are living, we have enough money, okay? Why we are living in the rural areas where the roads are not good, when it rains, so there is a hell lot of mud. Then, and moreover, are you not concerned about the education of your child? So why we are living here? So then family will shift to Calcutta, okay? So family will shift to Calcutta, which is a metropolitan city. In metropolitan city, they have enough money, they have bought a bungalow, they have bought a mansion, they have created a koti, and then now they have all the resources, they have car, and then their children, they are studying in the good colleges, then good schools. So they have shifted in Calcutta. But once they have shifted in the Calcutta, who will collect the revenue? Okay? So then the wife of the zamindar must have said that आपका साला क्या काम करेगा, उसको दे दो. Then so बहन का भाई बहुत important होता है. So इवन कभी कभी जीजा भी वेट करते हैं कि अरे तुम्हारा भाई आएगा तो अच्छा खाना बनेगा. So so now understand. So then it has been sublet to, okay? It has been sublet to the relatives, okay? And this relative is collecting. So original zamindar is absent from this area, okay? He has become absentee landlord. And I'm giving you real fact. Bardhaman, okay? Bardhaman was one of the big zamindari state of that time. Okay, it's a big district in Bengal even till this date. And in Bardhaman, 12 layers of sublet were there. 12 layers of sublet, meaning कि मैंने तुम्हें दिया, तुमने उन्हें दिया, पीछे की लाइन तक, ठीक है? So 12 layers. And one more interesting thing, that the Tagore family, Rabindranath Tagore's family, they were also the class of the zamindars, and they were also from Bardhaman. So so now interesting is this, that this सब feudalization, अब सब feudalization में बहुत normal सा है, तुम खुद समझो, ठीक है? Suppose if I have given to you, ठीक है? So if I was collecting little extra, suppose I have said to you that you will be paying me 10 rupees. You are supposed to collect 10 rupees, but then how much you will collect? 15 रुपए, 5 रुपए छुपा लूंगा, ठीक है? Now if it is increasing to the 12 layers, so then you can predict that how much exploitation, excruciation of the peasants must have happened. So this new class of the zamindars, they reaped huge benefits from this particular settlement, and then it has further led to the impoverishment of the peasantry of the Bengal. Okay, so mention, you're right. एक बार दिखाओ लास्ट में क्या लिखा है. So zamindars पे लिखा है that, ठीक है. So then next you write after it. It also led to initiation of the process of sub-feudalization in Indian society. Sub-feudalization in Indian society. It further led to emergence of absentee landlords. Then absentee landlords. Then next one. After this you write, the new class of zamindar reaped huge benefits. The new class of zamindar reaped huge benefits. Then a peasant likho, ठीक है? The last stakeholder is the peasant of the zamindar. So not zamindar, peasant who was there in this Bengal area. So ये अगर जो हिंदी में हम बात करें तो ये बहुत easy है predict करना कि what was the effect on the peasant. Then, so as we mentioned in the beginning, that the condition of the peasant, it became worse than hand to mouth. Okay? So worse than hand to mouth, meaning that even they were not able to support themselves on a daily basis. Then apart from it, then in many of the areas, since the taxes were so high, they stopped doing the cultivation. And they stopped doing the cultivation, they started migrating to the other areas. So migrating to the other areas to do some other labor work. So for example, they can involve themselves in the construction work, they can involve themselves in some other infrastructural project, but then they started leaving the profession of the agriculture. Then apart from it, what else can be said, that since the large number of the peasants, they are still there in the Bengal, and they had to make this payment, and which was very high. So sometimes they are taking the loans from the money lenders also. And when they are taking the loans from the money lenders, so these loans were highly exorbitant, then high interest rate, very exorbitant. So high interest rate, now the Bengal has changed after 1770s. एक बार फिर से ध्यान से समझना that when Jagat Seths we were talking about, why they were important in the Bengal economy, because they were providing the loans on a nominal rate. Okay, 2 से 3%. I think we discussed this part. So 2 to 3%. Then, and now at this point of time, the money lenders who are there, they are providing the loan on 20%, 25%. It's too high. So now once the peasant has taken the loan from the money lenders on a very high interest rate, so he will not be able to pay it. And when he's not able to pay it, so he's caught in the vicious cycle of debt. So he is caught in the vicious cycle of debt, and this vicious cycle of debt हिंदी में क्या बोलते हो, कर्ज का दुष्चक्र, meaning that he will never be able to pay the loan. And when he is never able to pay the loan, so then what will happen? Okay, there is only two options are there. Either he will resort to theft and robbery, okay, and second one, he will commit suicide, okay. So those who were assertive, they will revolt, okay, and those who were not assertive, they committed suicide. So mention the situation of the Bengal peasantry. The situation of the Bengal peasantry became very worse, became very worse, became very worse. Then many a times, they were forced to take loan from, many a times they were forced to take loan from moneylenders on a very high interest rate, on a very high interest rate. Then very high interest rate. It often led to peasants getting trapped in. It often led to peasants getting trapped in the vicious cycle of debt. It's written on board. So peasants getting trapped in the vicious cycle of debt. Then vicious cycle of debt. This further resulted into increased revolts against British authority. This further resulted into increased revolts against British authority, and also farmer suicides or peasant suicide लिखना, farmer नहीं लिखो, farmer is a different term. So and also led to peasant suicide. Why we are not using the word farmer? बताओ, peasant क्यों word use करते हैं? Yes, very good, exactly. So farmer is the owner of the land, but peasant is not necessarily owner of the land. ठीक है? See, he can be owner of land, some cases, ठीक है? It depends. But then not necessarily. But farmer is always the owner of the land. ठीक है? So this is what is all about the permanent settlement that we needed to talk about. ठीक है? एक बार major provisions revise कर लेते हैं. ठीक है? Just understand. So from where we started with 1793. It is Cornwallis who introduced this settlement in Bengal, and later on it was extended to Bihar and Odisha. Bengal, Bihar he initiated, and later on extended to Odisha, northern district of Madras, and Varanasi. It covered 19% area of the British India. Then what we talked about, why it was called as permanent settlement, because the amount was permanently fixed, which British will be getting year on year basis. What is the amount? 3 million pound. Okay, they will be getting. Then apart from it, next one was that we talked about what are the other things. So land ownership right was given to the zamindar, and it was hereditary, transferable. He can sell, he can mortgage, but the ultimate ownership lay in the hand of the British authority. What they can do, so if the zamindars are defaulting on the payment, they are not able to make the payment on time, so then land ownership right would be snatched and it will be bidded to auction to the highest bidder. Okay, that's there, which is leading to the creation of the new class of zamindar. Then after what we mentioned, there was no provision of the relief during crop failure due to any natural calamity. So these are the major provisions that we mentioned. Then reasons में क्या mention किया था? Reasons में administrative cost was the one reason that British wanted to minimize administrative cost. Number two, what we mentioned, Cornwallis expected that if zamindars will get surplus, they will invest on the fertility of the land. Then apart from it, he expected that if he is not focusing on this area, if zamindar is collecting the revenue, so then he can invest his time in other sphere. Then what else we talked? Paradigm shift in the Indian society, creation of a new class of zamindar. creation of a new class of zamindar who will not only be the friendly but also loyal to the British Raj. Then, so this is what is there. Then impact mein, okay? So in impact, British got the fixed income, but then they repented that they could have increased the revenue, that revision rates. They must have kept the provision of the revision rates, which they did not. And moreover, they what they expected, that the fertility of the land will increase, but the result was otherwise, meaning zamindars were not investing in the fertility of the land. Then apart from it, in zamindar, so there are two blocks in the zamindar. First we said that good number of the zamindars, they lost their land, okay? So meaning traditional zamindari is broken and new class of zamindar is created. So if we look at the percentage term, so near about 41% zamindars were new, okay? And 59 are the old ones. Then these new class of zamindars, they reaped huge benefits, and moreover it has further led to the beginning of the process of sub-feudalization, that is emergence of large number of intermediaries, and then also the phenomenon of absentee landlords. Then, so this is the one thing. And peasant ke bare mein, what we discussed, their economic decline, hand to that, their situation worse than hand to mouth, and moreover taking loan on exorbitant interest rate, which often led to they getting trapped in the vicious cycle of debt when they are not able to pay. So they will either revolting, and or some of them are committing suicide. So it is like this only. Take care. So take break, and then after we'll continue with the topic of the Rayatwadi settlement. Take care. Chalo. Start with the next settlement, that is Rayatwadi settlement. So right, number 2, Rayatwadi settlement. So as far as the initial details of the Rayatwadi settlement is concerned, very first thing, that it derives its name from the word Rayat. So Rayat is the Indian word which means peasant. Then another thing, that since British were not able to pronounce it correctly, so they are using the word this, riots. So for Rayat, they were using the word riots. So it is derived from the word Rayat, which means peasant. And why this kind of settlement is known as Rayatwadi? Because the direct negotiation between the peasant and the British authority. Okay? No intermediary, at least on the paper. So paper पे कोई intermediary नहीं था, and it was direct settlement between the British and the peasant. Then who introduced it? So actually the experiment of this particular settlement was already there from 1792. So 1792, actually there were two people. Okay? Initially Alexander Reed. So Alexander Reed was the one who started experimenting it in the area of the Baramahal. Where is Baramahal? Karnataka. Okay? Remember? So why 1792 onwards? Ab connect karo. See, that's what I'm trying. I'm trying to make that trying in this class कि जो पीछे पढ़ा है उसे connect करो, और उसके बावजूद भी दिमाग बंद रखोगे तो कहाँ से होगा? So 1792 में you tell me that what happened in Mysore? Mysore has come under the control of the British. Half of the Mysore was looted, and you have written in Mysore that Baramahal area was taken by the partners. So it has gone to the British. So that's why they have started experiment in the Mysore. Okay? So now understand. So in Baramahal area from 1792 onwards, Alexander Reed introduced it, and then Thomas Munro supported it. Okay? So Thomas Munro, they were the two important British officers who supported it, who gone ahead with it. Then what happened? That experiment went on, but then it never became a regular feature of that area. Somewhere around 1801 and 1807, that it completely stopped. Okay? So experiment के बाद ये बंद हो गया. And then after, it was Thomas Munro who pleaded with the British authority, or we can say that who persuaded British authority that it needs to be upscaled, or it needs to be implemented on the larger area. So the very first introduction happened in the Madras province, okay, Madras presidency by Thomas Munro in 1819, and then after in 1820, Mount Stuart Elphinstone, okay, he implemented it in which area? Bombay presidency. So in fact, after this name, how many of you have been to Mumbai? No one. Many of you. So you must have heard one road, Elphinstone Road, and it is named after the Mount Stuart Elphinstone. And last day when we were talking about some of the very that honest civil servant, he was one of it. Okay, Mount Stuart Elphinstone. So is the Thomas Munro. Then so is the Metcalfe. Then so now understand that they introduced it in these areas, first in Madras and later on in the Bombay. And it covered near about 51% area of the British India. So 51% area of the British India. So right, एक बार लिखो, mention. It derives its name from the word Rayat. It derives its name from the word Rayat, which means peasants. Then which means peasant. Then you write after it initially it was introduced as a experimental project. Initially it was introduced as a experimental project by Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro. Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro in the area of in the area of Baramahal. Alexander as introduced as an experimental project in the area of no, just 1 minute. Introduced as an experimental project by Alexander Reed and Thomas Munro. In the area of Baramahal. In 1792. In the area of Baramahal in 1792. Then after you mention in the area of Baramahal. Later on, when Thomas Munro persuaded higher officials in 1819, then he was allowed to introduce it in Madras presidency. Then introduce it in Madras presidency. Full stop. In 1820, so I'm writing the spelling of the name Mount Stuart. Okay? Mount Stuart Elphinstone. Introduced it in Bombay presidency. Mount Stuart Elphinstone introduced it in Bombay presidency. Then, so let's have a look at the provisions of this particular settlement. Okay? So Mount Stuart Elphinstone and नहीं एक और last लिखो. It covered approximately 51% area. It covered approximately 51% area of British India. 51% area of British India. Then provisions पे आ जाओ and provisions लिख के छोड़ दो. Let's go into the discussion. So understand that this settlement was going to introduce new things, and moreover they have some learnings from the permanent settlement, because already permanent settlement 1793 to 1820, almost 30 years, okay, or 27-28 years. So they have some learnings from that area which they don't want to repeat in this one. So the major provisions are the very first thing that we mentioned, that is settlement is between the British authority and the peasants, okay, riots. So riots, directly the revenue was collected from the riots or the riots. Then the question comes, that question arises, that what about the land ownership right? Who was given land ownership right? So when the revenue is collected from the peasants directly, so they were the one who were given land ownership right. Similarly, less like the last system, here also the land ownership right was given to peasant. It was hereditary, it was transferable, they can sell it, they can mortgage it. So the same rights were here. Then once again, similar to the permanent settlement, that it also had this particular provision that when the peasants are not making the payment on time, okay, so making the payment on time, so then it may lead to the snatching of their land ownership right, and it can be further sold to somebody else. Then so this same type of the provision, but then there are some differences. One of the difference that they realized in due course of time, that there must be a revision of the rates. So in this particular settlement, it was mentioned that after every 30 year, there would be a revision of the rates. Then it is not permanently fixed. So there would be a revision of the rates. Then the next point is, for calculation and imposition of the taxes, a comparative scientific method was adopted. Then, so a comparative scientific method was adopted. What is a scientific method? एक बार ध्यान से समझना. First, land was surveyed. Okay? First, land was surveyed, and the agricultural fertility or fertility of the land was also assessed. So एक बार survey हुआ. Survey के बाद fertility is assessed, and then after it was mentioned in this act that on what amount they can impose the taxes, they maintained that, first of all, I'll go with a generic example, that there is suppose there is 10 acre of land. Then, and in this 10 acre of land, paddy is cultivated. So as per this provision, they said, before imposing the taxes, the total expense on growing the crop, okay, total expense on growing the crop in this field is to be deducted from the total worth of the crop. Total worth of the crop. Then whatever is the remaining balance, on this remaining balance, taxes can be imposed. Then it further mentioned that this tax rates must not be more than 50%. It must always be less than 50%. फिर से एक बार दोबारा समझना, ठीक है? That this settlements, it started with the survey and classification of land according to the fertility. Then it said that before imposing the taxes, the total expense on growing a crop is to be deducted from the total worth of the crop, and on the remaining balance, taxes can be imposed, but this tax must not be more than 50%. Now understand. So let's go with some generic figures. So 10 acre का land, ठीक है, जो भी paddy cultivation किया, ठीक है, and suppose the price of the worth, total worth of this crop is around 5 lakh rupees. Suppose, likhna nahi, just for understanding. So total worth of the crop is 5 lakh rupees, and what is the expense on growing the crop? Suppose it is 1 lakh rupees. So 1 lakh रुपया लगा paddy को उगाने में, ठीक है, and then 5 lakh rupees is the total worth of the crop. So then you tell on how much amount taxes would be imposed? 4 lakh, ठीक है, and what could be the maximum amount of tax? 2 lakh. You got it? So this is as simple as that. So a scientific method was adopted in this one. But then there is one more thing that we can see in this settlement. When the tax is to be collected from the peasant, so who will collect the tax? Who will collect the tax? British officers. So now this will lead to the establishment of a big revenue department. Okay? It will lead to the establishment of a big revenue department in Bombay and Madras. And it will increase the administrative cost of the revenue collection also at the same time. So mention, you write. Very first, you start with land revenue was directly collected from the peasants. Land revenue was directly collected from the peasants. Peasants. And on paper, intermediaries were not involved. And on paper, intermediaries were not involved. Then were not involved. Then further you mention after it. Okay? And now understand one more part, that the sequence is that these are the exploitations that we are referring right now, which will suffocate the people by 1857. And after this suffocation, they will find a chance to revolt in 1857. So these are also one of the major reasons of the revolt when we are going to talk about the 1857 revolt. And because the rate of the taxes would be very high in all the systems, and by the time next class when we'll be completing this part, so you will further understand. So एक बार लिखो what you have written. From the peasants and intermediaries were not involved, at least on the paper. At least on the paper. Then mention, okay? After it, land ownership right was given. Land ownership right was given to the peasants. Land ownership right was given to the peasants. It was hereditary, transferable. It was hereditary, transferable. Transferable. And peasants were also entitled. And peasants were also entitled to sell it or mortgage it. To sell it or mortgage it. Then mention. Next point. The ultimate ownership of the land, was given to the peasants or the riots. Was given to the peasants. No, just 1 minute, Something wrong has gone. So the ultimate ownership of the land was with the British authority, not given to. Was with the British authority. Was with the British authority. Full stop. If peasant defaulted on the payment, land ownership was snatched. Land ownership was snatched and sold to someone else. Land ownership was snatched and sold to someone else. Full stop. Third you write. Okay. The settlement needed large number of employees in the revenue establishment of the government. The settlement needed large number of employees in the revenue establishment of the government. Then then as such it led to creation of big revenue department department and and many officials with a particular hierarchy, many officials with a particular in a particular hierarchy, then next you write it included, next point, it included the provision of revision of land revenue rates after an interval of 30 years. After an interval of 30 years. After an interval of 30 years. Then next you write a comparative scientific method. A comparative scientific method was adopted. A comparative scientific method was adopted for calculation. Scientific method was adopted for calculation and imposition of the taxes. For calculation and imposition of the taxes. Then, but in the same statement you write, first land was surveyed and classified according to fertility. Land was surveyed and classified according to fertility. Next point. Before imposing the taxes, total expense on growing the crop, was to be deducted from the total worth of the crop. Was to be deducted from the total worth of the crop. Full stop. Further, it was mentioned that the tax rates must not be more than 50% on the remaining amount. More than 50% on the remaining amount. Okay? Remaining amount. Then one last thing you understand. So in permanent settlement, there was no provision of the relief, but in the settlement, they have incorporated a provision of relief. So if there is any, due to any reason, okay, if there is a crop failure, so then the tax rates can be, that the relief can be granted to the peasants. So mention that, you write, this settlement included provision of relief to the peasants. This settlement included provision of relief to the peasants in case of crop failure, due to any natural calamity. So these are the provisions of the रायतवाड़ी सेटलमेंट. ठीक है, अब डिफरेंस तो नोट डाउन कर रहे हो. कंपैरिजन भी हमेशा व्हेनेवर यू आर राइटिंग एनीथिंग, ठीक है, सो ट्राई टू कंपेयर ऑन द सेम डे कि पीछे वाला जो पढ़ा है उससे क्या चेंजेस हैं. सो दिस कुड बी अ यूनिक टाइप ऑफ द क्वेश्चन इन एग्जाम that compare between the provisions of the permanent and Rayatwadi settlement. Then So one such thing is there, the land ownership right is there with the in permanent was zamindar, and what was the outcome of it? Fertility declined, ठीक है, but here they wanted to give it to the peasant कि वो कुछ करेगा fertility पे, ठीक है, so fertility must not decline. That was the major consideration at this time. So we'll write in the reasons that क्यों peasant को दे दिया, ठीक है. So in reasons we'll write later on. Then the other thing is that land ownership right के बाद next thing what difference we are seeing, revision of the rates, ठीक है. And then there in the permanent there were no British officers to collect the revenue. Now here British officers or British appointed officers would be collecting the revenues. Then and here revenue establishment or revenue departments would be bigger in the two areas, Bombay and Madras. And then the revision of the rates is another difference, and crop failure may no relief in permanent and there is a relief in this particular settlement. Okay. So now I'm giving a pause to this topic right now since already the seats have been distributed. So what is the class number today? Class number 12. Okay. And you have covered a good enough number of the topic by this class. So I'm going to write a question. Meanwhile, what you do, let's write your name, registration number. Okay. Start, write your name, registration number. And one more thing, I'm giving you one new, not opportunity, but then one scope to you. It's an open book answer writing. Okay? So open book, you can take help of your notes. And this topic is from the Bengal. See, we want to see that even after, understand, even after seeing the notes, you are able to write or not. So, देख सकते हो, topic is Bengal, and meanwhile, I am writing the question. And I'll give, since it is an open book assignment, so I'll give you 3-4 extra minutes in this particular test. ठीक है, okay. So assignment code I'm writing here in the middle, 6777. It's a good number, starting with the 6, ending with the 6, and in the middle you have 777. So I'll start the stopwatch. So you can figure out it is from the Bengal, and now you need to figure out that is it visible? Not visible? Just give me 1 minute. Fine. So I'm starting the stopwatch. You can start. And online, you can also write in 15 minutes and upload it on your platform the way you upload the assignments. कोशिश करो इंट्रो अच्छा लिखो at least. You can write answer in 8 minutes. 5-6 मिनट देख सकते हो that what you'll be writing. You can plan in your notes. Half time over. You have 7 and 15 minutes right now. Six minutes. You have 6 minutes. Chalo, one liberty would be given to you. 150, 70, 190 तक कर सकते हो. And I would ask that your numbers would not be deducted if you are exceeding. Because obviously this is a big question. 250 word का होना चाहिए, but since your seat does not support 250 words, so three and a half minutes remaining. इस मिनट आई एम गिविंग यू, ऑलरेडी टाइम इज ओवर, एक लास्ट मिनट है, कंक्लूड करो जल्दी. Those who have completed, give it to me. So, एक काम करो, just complete हो गया ना, तो just collect together in each of the bench. एक बार collect कर लो. And so time is over. अब submit करो, pen रोक दो. All of you. Give it to me. Time is over. All of you collect like this. Take. Collect like this. Then assignment code. अच्छा, assignment code और registration number अपना नाम लिखना नहीं भूलना. Otherwise it will not be evaluated. I'll check. ठीक है. So from this side, all of you, give it to me. दे दो. कितना लिखोगे? घर ले जाके लिखना. This side, everyone, collect it from there. Collect it from there. तुमसे बहुत उम्मीद है. You have a good name actually. दे दो. म्यूजियम थोड़ी जाने वाला है ये. This side? Okay. The people who are at the back side, they get more time to write. But देखो UPSC में पता नहीं है that where you will be getting your roll number, and in UPSC your seating arrangement is not according to your name. That those who have with the A, they will be sitting in the front. It's all according to roll number, and you never know that with your roll number where you'll. And in UPSC एक और चीज ध्यान रखना, पीछे बैठने का कोई मतलब नहीं है उसमें. On every 5, मतलब 5 people, there is a 1 person who will be collecting. So just hardly 1 or 2 minute, 1 or 2 second का difference होता है सबकी कॉपी खींचने में. तो वहां पे तुम्हें एक्सेस टाइम नहीं मिलेगा. This side, all of you submitted. ठीक है, everyone. So I hope that all of you have written your roll numbers and your assignment codes. So it can be checked. You check in that one. I'm just seeing in this one. Revidos, if it's all fine. Okay. So I think it is fine. बाकी तक मैंने check किया था. So now, though answer would be uploaded by the evening, ठीक है? लेकिन you tell me that how's the feel after writing? It's good or bad? Mixed, ठीक है? Mixed तो अपने performance में बोल रहे हो. So basically, see, this is open book. Open book में, see, what we need to see that do you have that skill to extract the information. that what is asked in the question. Okay? And many a times when open book is there, some of you get flustered. What to write, what not to write. So actually it is all about checking that your ability, that you're not getting flustered, and then how good you are understanding the question. So majority of you, okay, I saw the answer, you have understood the question, but then pat yourself that you have written one of the mains question. It is not that easy, first of all. So if you have addressed even 75% of the question, pat yourself. And you have just embarked on this journey. So it's a beginning. It needs hell lot of perseverance. Overnight koi Superman nahi ban jata hai. So it will take time. And this exercise you must continue. So I would not go ahead with the rest of the things today, but then I have a request to you. See, we also want your selection. That's a reality. Then with you, we also get benefit, and with us, you must get benefit. But remember in this exam that there is no such substitution of the hard work. So एक काम करो that अपने level पे ही previous year paper उठाओ और at least एक क्वेश्चन, ठीक है, 8 या 9 मिनट के लिए कम से कम किताब से पढ़ के ही उसको लिखना स्टार्ट करो. Then and at least in a week you must write 5 answers. Assignment whichever we are giving in the classes, that you must be writing, but from your own end you also write at least one question, and for 5 days. So in a week if you're writing 5, you yourself will able to see your transformation after 3 months, that your writing skill, your expression, everything will change, and nothing comes without honing your skill. So if with the same axe you keep on cutting the trees, after some trees it will not be working. So you need to hone your skill. So usko karo, and I will not say much about it, you know it. तो देखते हैं इसमें how well you are going to fare. And अच्छा, ये just I wanted to know that do you understood that what was sponsored part? बताओ, what was the sponsored part? Who got the power? British authority. And how they got the power? By war succession and then division in the Sirajuddaulas court. ठीक है? So first of all, death of Alivardi, then war of succession and division in the Sirajuddaulas court. After that, British got this as an opportunity that they can interfere and they can create a conspiracy. What was the conspiracy? Mir Zafar was, yes, commander-in-chief of the forces, and he was bribed that if he affects a coup, so then he will be appointed as a, or he will be sponsored as a Nawab. I hope many of you have got it. ठीक है? फिर उसके बाद then, so since British are sponsoring, मुझे लग रहा है कि मैंने बंगाल वाली क्लास में भी we discussed that if somebody is sponsoring something, so it is not free of cost. It has some price of it. And what was the price? That is the loot of the Bengal, plundering of the Bengal. The price was he gave zamindari right of 24 pargana, and then 2,75,000 pound war indemnity, and then 22.5 million rupees. Okay? Then when he started to enlist the help of Dutch for military support, the sponsored candidate was removed and new sponsored candidate came to power. This new sponsored candidate was Mir Qasim. Okay? Mir Qasim also paid them, okay, that he tried to satisfy their greed by paying what? 29 lakh rupees and jamindari of 3 areas. So what were 3 areas? Chittagong, Midnapur and Vardhaman. And then after, when he started to contest British, he also was removed, which led to Battle of Buxar. And in conclusion, you could have written that what was the impact of this particular that war of succession and loot and the plundering of the Bengal, and actually impact of this particular episode on India's history, because British got huge money with which they funded the wars in the different parts of the country, and then they further consolidated their position. So इस question में देखो, answer was not difficult. What you needed to understand the question. So question जहाँ तक समझ लिया तुमने अच्छे से address किया होता, ठीक है? So let's see that how well you are faring, and then next week, so we'll complete the part of the Rayatwadi, and then we'll go into the Mahalwadi. So I do have a class, otherwise I could have extended the class today. Okay? Chalo. Thank you.